The opening scene shows Honey as a young girl watching a movie on the TV. Her dad joins her and realizes that she's watching an movie. He discourages her from watching the scenes, citing they create unholy urges that will lead her to hell. It seems like all she ever hears about is hell, because even at church, the priest keeps threatening everyone with hell if they should ever partake in course for a purpose other than procreation. If that's the case, hell must be pretty crowded then. Years later, Honey is a grown woman who aspires to be a writer. She's working as a development personnel, recently promoted from being her boss's assistant. However, she wishes to have an opportunity to make a movie about the script she has written. At the office, she's shagging her boss, who is also an outstanding actor, Heartbr0ken. He soon gets called for an interview on a news channel. At the end of the interview, she pitches some of her scripts to him, but he discourages her from going further with them because he believes movies about women do not sell. For him, it has to be all about a man before the movies make waves. She gets back home that night, feeling disheartened. The usual routine of her dream is being crushed daily. Honey lies on her couch with a long face when she suddenly remembers a flyer she received on her way home. She looks through the flyer, which is for a female seminar, and the subject is focused on a woman's femininity. It piques her interest, so she decides to check them out. The next day, she arrives at the venue and meets several women there. In the course of the class, Honey meets Eva St. Clair, who is a famous designer, and she's surprised to find her at the seminar. It seems even fashionistas need some life coaching. After the class, Honey walks along the street with Eva and Candy, a lady they met in the course of their program. Candy shares how the class has helped her with her issues since she's been a participant for quite some time now. She invites them to come to check out where she works, and also reveals that she casts magical spells to make people's dreams come true. They soon arrive at the store where Candy works. She shows them around and informs them about the various items in the shop, as well as their purposes. Her boss, Mr. J, walks in saying there is nothing special about the items, which are just overpriced for rich idiots to buy. Honesty in advertisements is a rare occurrence. He walks out, asking Candy to pick up her paycheck and trash the waste in his office. Eva is stunned and requests to know if her boss just called them idiots. Candy quickly changes the subject and gets their attention back to the subject of discussion. She inquires about their desires and gives them a candle to wish on before lighting them. After the ritual, Eva gives them an invitation to a fun party which she was invited to. The ladies storm the party hours later, and they are having so much fun drinking and dancing to music blasting through the stereos. Eva comes across her artist friend, Freedom, who takes a liking to Honey. He asks her to dance with him, which she accepts. At the end of the party, Freedom requests they hang out for some more drinks, but Honey declines, informing him that she needs to wake up early for work the next day. Also, she makes sure she mentions having a boyfriend. Freedom smiles and says a quote in Spanish. He hopes to see her some other time and bid her farewell as she steps into the car. For Honey, she feels like she had one of the best nights of her life. The following day at work, Peter presents his new script ideas to Linda, the owner of one of the studios he works with in his productions. A few of his staff and Honey are present at the meeting as well. Honey voices her concerns about his desire to always depict a female harlot being stabbed in his movies. She suggests they change the storyline just once and let one of the live. Thankfully, Linda agrees with her and she instructs Honey to work with James to come up with a new script, which is to be submitted to her. A breath of fresh air, but one that could come at a cost. Peter isn't pleased with the turn of events and attempts to convince her otherwise, but Linda is adamant. He watches her leave the boardroom before turning to confront Honey. Honey stands up to him and his crazy ideas of sex and violence in movies. She informs him that she wants a breakup, and the duo argues for a few minutes. His new assistant, who has been crushing on Peter, is smiling, thinking there's an opportunity to have a chance with him, like a circling vulture. The ladies are going through quite a phase in their lives. For Candy, her supposed boyfriend, Daniel, informs her that they are best friends and not bound to a confined relationship. She listens to the man she thought she was in a relationship with for over 2 years, as he informs her that there's nothing serious going on between them. Meanwhile, Eva is sending several voicemails to her ex-husband. She pretends that everything is fine and she's cool with him being with someone else, but deep down, she wants him back desperately. Each lady dragging their cross. She even threatens to do something drastic if he doesn't show up at her residence. After all, if pleas won't do, threats should help out. At the close of work, Honey hangs out with Freedom at a restaurant afterward. They head to his house. Freedom shows her some really weird dance moves as an energetic and rhythmic beat plays in the background. He takes her hand for a kiss, advising her to let it all out and just embrace Freedom. In no time, they are on the bed panting as he makes her moan continuously. Honey recalls the priest's teachings, and she doesn't even realize that she's saying sorry. Freedom brings her back to reality, and she confesses that she feels guilty for doing something wrong. He assures her that she's not, and encourages her to enjoy the moment as he gives her multiple. Darren arrives at Eva's house after listening to all her messages and even offending threats. She hears his voice and picks up herself from the floor, which is littered with bottles of alcohol. She opens the door with her hair scattered and looks at him with a hint of happiness. Her savior has arrived. In the course of their conversation, she brings up the past and questions where his current lover Chandra was when she was sponsoring him through art school. Darren admits they always had issues because she keeps reminding him of things she did and how she always talks about money. He encourages her to take proper care of herself before taking his leave. The next day, the ladies meet up, and Honey talks about getting laid and her understanding of sex, which Freedom has changed. She used to focus more on pleasing guys, so much so that she never really got off herself. Eva shares how bad getting laid was like with Darren and how she supported him financially for 14 years. He also had erectile dysfunction and had to go 21-year-old so he could feel like a man again. Candy shares how she feels like she has to do everything a guy says to not get dumped. She reveals that she's been dating a guy for 2 years, and all the while, she's been pretending like she's unaware that he's been dating other girls. They start giving each other advice on how to go about the challenges in their sad lives. Eva suggests they quit dwelling on their challenges. Honey proposes they take every good compliment they get and run with it. She asks Eva to start by complimenting herself right away, achieving self-love, one forced compliment at a time. They tell themselves beautiful things contrary to what they heard in their relationships, and they also all conclude to quit being men. Honey requests to have the candles back since she needs to make a wish. It's about time to invoke the spirits. Getting back home, she makes a wish to see Freedom again, then have some real hot intercourse with him, and then she lights the candle. In less than a minute, her phone beeps with a text from Freedom requesting they hang out on Sunday. Sunday arrives and the duo cycles down the beach area. Honey wants to be sure that Freedom doesn't think she's cheap because she allowed him to get down and dirty with her on their first date. He assures her that's not the case and requests they go over to his place. At his house, he starts a conversation and creates a sort of mental connection between the both of them, which helps Honey loosen up a bit. He gradually leads her into another moment of intimate bliss as they realize their desires and explore their bodies. Honey resumes work the following morning, and she's discussing some ideas with James when Peter walks up to them. Here comes the rain on her creative parade. He intentionally taunts her, implying that she has a slim chance of coming up with a movie-worthy script. Immediately, James reveals that he read one of her works, and he's so in love with the piece. Alas, someone with a great taste. He commends her work on the storyline, and Honey feels excited that someone actually loves her work. At Eva's workplace, she walks over to a quiet section and brings out her candle. She wishes for love and then lights up the candle just like Candy did on the first day they met. Afterward, she steps out to a coffee stand. An old friend of Darren by the name of Mark is walking by when he sees Eva. He stops and greets her. They catch up and Mark informs her that he's divorced as well, though he had 2 beautiful daughters before he parted with his wife. Is this a true love link-up or a disaster waiting to happen? Eva takes him to her place as they discuss all they've accomplished in life. Mark commends her, seeing that she's not doing bad for herself. The conversation gets tense as he starts complimenting her beauty and recalling memories from years ago. He suddenly grabs her and kisses her lips, confessing that he had a crush on her for 14 years. Mark carries her up and lays her on the bed. He bends down and starts pleasuring her. This has been on his mind ever since their meeting at Walmart. Eva loses control of herself as she can't stop talking. She's enjoying every bit of it because it's something Darren never does whenever they make out. Meanwhile, Candy is in her house looking really sad. She wishes for love and then lights her candle. She sees her ex coming towards her door from where she's sitting, so she decides to keep calm and listen to him. When he gets to the door, he signals her to open up and then requests to have his laundry. She loses control and wonders when he intends to treat her like the amazing person that she is. She wants to be taken care of in the same way she's been taking care of him. Unfortunately, he turns her down, using the same excuse that a relationship is difficult for him because his parents got divorced. Candy loses her cool and throws his clothes out. She warns him never to call her again until he's ready to start treating her right, like she deserves to be treated. She walks back and closes the door. She feels amazing and even breaks into a dance immediately after she gets into the house. The feeling of liberation. The next day at the office, Honey shares some new ideas with James on their story. She walks into Peter and a few of her colleagues working on a game. The entire concept of the game is in Peter's usual style: sex and she feels irritated at the sight of teenage boys hunting and shooting girls. Honey attempts to discourage him from continuing with the app because it's totally different from the storyline she and James are working on. But Peter reminds her that everything she's got is because of him, adding that if she wants to be a writer it's all good, but she won't get her paycheck if she doesn't supervise the game and ensure that all the ladies' nipples are erect. The following day, the ladies meet up to share and talk about the recent happenings in their lives. Since a lot happened, Eva talks on and on about her sexcapades with Mark. Candy feels a little jealous as both her friends seem to have been enjoying great sex while she's got nothing. Eva talks about her fear of exposing her body. She works with models, and seeing their bodies makes her feel less sexy. The girls advise her to quit thinking so low of herself, and Honey suggests they make a pact to be with good guys only. The idea sounds great, so they all agree, even though Eva thinks sometimes they need to be with jerks too. At work on Friday, James commends Honey's work on one of her novels which he read. He encourages her to write about her new friends if she thinks it'll make sense. She thanks him and asks if he has seen Peter's new game. She thinks the game is so vile, and if she's a techie she'll just put a virus in the computer so everything will crash. James lifts his head and reveals that he's tech-savvy. A stroke of luck. He makes his way to the computer room and begins to work on them. She runs behind him and excitedly shuts the door before anyone comes around. At the end of work, Honey and James walk out of the office together, partners in crime. She thanks him and compliments him for being a genius tech wizard because his skills are excellent. They chat for a while, and he offers to show her his skills in rap because it's one of the things he loves doing. After listening to him, Honey laughs really hard and advises him not to give up on his day job for rap. Looks like he doesn't have a future in music. Later that evening, the ladies are all dressed up and they accompany Eva to her ex-husband's event at the gallery. They are stunned to see Darren's young girlfriend who can pass for his daughter. What's even more stunning is a painting of Eva hanging on the wall. They walk over there to have a proper look. Darren sees Eva and walks over to greet her. They exchange pleasantries, and he promises to see her later at dinner because he needs to go attend to some clients. In the next scene at Honey's place of work, DeMarcus, who is handling the game production, laments about the damage that has been done to the program. DeMarcus complains to Peter that someone with a password must have tampered with the system. If only they knew. Peter's new assistant points fingers at Honey, but Peter warns her to stop it because Honey doesn't even know how to download a software update on her system. He angrily fires DeMarcus and blames him for everything. Candy is at home stuffing some food into her mouth when Daniel shows up with a bouquet in his hand. He apologizes and confesses that he likes the way she bossed him around the other time. It turned him on and he wants more of it. She's surprised and excited at the same time. She lets him in and quickly changes into sexy lingerie. She comes back out and orders him to do her laundry, clean her house, and lick her down below. Daniel is in awe as he stares at her with lustful admiration. She yells at him to crawl, and he does her bidding without hesitation, while she excitedly jumps behind him. Eva visits Mark's restaurant, and she's quite impressed. He introduces her to his daughters, who are excited to see her. They honor her invitation to her house later that night, and while she's tasting some delicious food Mark prepared, she admits to having a food orgy. Unbeknownst to her, Mark's youngest daughter is listening. The little one requests to know what an orgasm is, and the adults quickly pull away. Eva smartly diverts and changes the discussion as she turns on the music and invites the girls to dance. Later that evening, Honey gets back home and lights up the candles, wishing for freedom to call her. She eventually calls him and he invites her to come over to his side, where he's hosting a party. Upon arrival at his place, she's surprised to see him partying and doing illegal substances. Looks like Mr. Perfect is far from perfect. She declines his invitation to sniff anything because she's a lightweight. The duo soon end up on the bed, kissing each other fiercely until freedom pulls away, as the stuff he's been taking starts to kick in. The ladies meet up the next day and Candy excitedly shares how she ordered Daniel around, but then she's still scared to say what she genuinely feels around him. She can express herself in front of her friends, but not him, for fear that he will leave her. The girls advise her on what to do, and she suggests they light the white candles for healing because they all need it. The next time Candy meets with Daniel, she asks if he is seeing other women, and from his response, she requests that he just commit to her. However, he simply waves it away, saying he'll think about it. Commitment is a phobia for him still. The following day at work, Peter is going on and on taunting Honey because she ended their relationship. He pretends like he doesn't need her, but it's driving him crazy that she's not even attempting to come back to him. Later that evening, Honey and Candy are at Eva's residence as she prepares to go on a date with Darren. Before she realizes what's going on, Candy sets her up on a date with Mark at his restaurant, just a few hours after her date with Darren. Someone knocks, and Eva excitedly runs to let Darren in. She welcomes him, but the girls complicate the situation when they reveal that she will be going on a date later tonight. On their way to the car, Darren insists on knowing who her date is. Since he claims it's not a bother to him, Eva unveils her date, but Darren refuses to take it lightly. He feels upset that she's dating and sleeping with his friend. He walks her to the car and drives straight to Mark's restaurant. It's about to go down. Immediately after they arrive at the restaurant, Darren runs in and begins to confront his friend. He breaks a bottle of drink and even attacks Mark. Seeing that he can't overpower him, he turns his attention to Eva, asking her to choose between them. Candy steps into the party, and she meets up with Daniel, who isn't really expecting her to show up. She asks if he's interested in monogamy or not, but he tries to evade her question. He pretends to go greet a guy named Steve, so Candy seizes the opportunity to introduce herself to the man as someone who sleeps with men casually. Daniel is no longer finding the conversation comfortable. Meanwhile, Steve already wants to ask for her number. He doesn't know how to bring their discussion to a stop, so he starts hovering over her, trying to prevent her from going ahead with Steve's request. Honey shows up at the place where Peter had asked to see her. He leads her to the men's restroom and informs her that he got rid of Linda because she agreed with a few things in the script Honey submitted. He reveals that he got some new financiers for the movie, so Linda's opinion doesn't matter anymore, and to that effect, he fires her. She scoffs at him and informs him that she quits as well. She declares intent to create her own movies, where women will be having religious orgasms, and no one would be stabbing them in their... They argue over his decision, and she gives him a piece of her mind before walking away from him. After their date, Eva and Darren end up on a bed. As usual, he can't satisfy her and falls back on the bed. To make matters worse, she discovers that Chandra broke up with him, which is the reason he came back to her. She's his second option. This leads to an argument, and she tells him about her sexual experience with Mark just to piss him off. Honey stops by Freedom's place after leaving Peter. He goes around sniffing hard and then painting. She discovers that he's an addict. He confesses his love for her and reveals that he will have to go away for maybe 5 years. He's uncertain if he will come back for her or not. She looks at him in disbelief as he tries to make her understand what he's saying. Freedom gets on his feet and asks her to remember that he is leaving her better than he found her, and then he takes his leave. When the ladies meet up at Candy's workplace, Honey sulks about how things ended with Freedom. She throws the candles and blames them for her misfortune. She even tells Candy that she's living in a world of fantasy. That's why she believes the candles are magical. Mr. J comes out to find her making a mess of his store, so he angrily fires Candy, who yells back at him saying she quit. With a tear-filled face, she ends her friendship with Honey, saying she can't be friends with someone who thinks she's stupid. In the next scene, Honey rolls on the bed restlessly as she keeps checking her phone. The following day, she stops by the office and packs all her stuff into a box. James comes around to assure her that everything will be okay, and he believes that she will do well for herself, no matter her current emotional challenges. After leaving her former place of work, she visits Candy and apologizes for taking her frustrations out on her. They make up, and Honey suggests they visit Eva, who is at her fashion house. She isn't pleased about seeing Honey, but after her weird apology, she decides to let go of her grievance. Honey and Candy request for her to let them sell Candy's candles in her store so they can raise money for her rent. She permits them, and in no time, they start making sales. While they are conversing, one of Eva's girls brings the dresses that were made for Mark's daughters. Eva confesses that she chose Darren and now she regrets it. She fears that Mark will never want to set his eyes on her after what ensued between him and Darren because of her. Her girls encourage her to go deliver the clothes and tender her apology. They accompany her to his house and ask her to go knock on the door. Mark isn't too excited to see her. She apologizes and shows him the girls' clothes, but he informs her that he will appreciate it if they don't see each other anymore. One of his daughters walks in on them, and Mary's super excited to see her. She drags Eva into the house and expresses her love for the dress. Before long, Mark and Eva reconcile as they watch the girls play around in their new dresses. The next day, the ladies meet up to talk about how their lives have been going, and Candy shares that Daniel is not coming around. She suggests they do a ritual and call on all the elements for help. The ladies agree. So they get up and call on nature's elements to come help them with their heart's desires. Afterward, they light up the purple candles for power. High on hope and feeling overwhelmed, they run into the rain as an expression of joy. The next day comes with renewed hopes. Honey picks up a book on sex to help her understand all she needs to in regards to intimacy and love. She makes sure to practice everything the book teaches to the point of herself. Eva is with Mark in the bedroom. She's yet to get over how she feels about it, but Mark encourages her to free herself and be in the Her body is driving him nuts, and right now, he sees her as the most beautiful woman he's ever seen. He grabs her and lays her on the bed as he begins to explore her body. Honey steals Linda's contact from Peter, and she visits her office to pitch her new script. Thankfully, Linda gives her 5 minutes to hear all she has to say about her work. At Candy's place, Daniel comes in, unable to bear the thought that she may be going out with Steve. He informs her that he's ready to commit and make their relationship a monogamous one. She jumps on him in excitement, showering him with kisses. After the meeting with Linda, Honey is walking along the pathway when she sees the priest from her childhood. She's surprised to see him locking hands with another man, since he used to preach that the purpose of sex is for procreation, and anything other than that is a sin. She stops him to confirm his identity. He urges her not to torment herself with his preachings back then, because now he thinks God wants people to be happy. After making out, Candy and Daniel resume chatting. She shows him the unicorn doll Honey got for her. She realizes that they do not share the same opinions about unicorns because he doesn't like them, and that's a deal breaker for her. To Daniel's surprise, she calls off their relationship and proposes they remain friends. Honey decides to visit James. She thanks him for being nice to her and invites him on a date. Later, she meets with the girls, who celebrate her achievement as the and flicking champion. She laughs because she's not sure about who she's competing with, but she's glad she is the winner. Honey suggests they light a candle to their friendship. The ladies' lives are beginning to align with their desires. Eva and Mark's love blossoms beautifully. Candy's candle business is flourishing with many customers swarming. Honey is not one to be left behind since Linda gave her a chance when it came to the movie adaptation of her script. They transform from the unhappy women they used to be to beautiful, confident, and successful women who are proud of themselves. The ladies continued attending the feminine seminars, which had brought them together, as each session became more and more interesting.